Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Miha and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will revisit the job application process, but we are going to go a little bit deeper than last time when we simply looked at how to compare your resume to a job application to identify gaps. Now, there are many tools out there today that will allow you to mass apply to jobs. These are great if your goal is to simply send out as many resumes as you possibly can. But when it comes to jobs or roles that you really care about, I think adding some depth to your application process has great value. As somebody who's sat on recruitment committees for different types of roles, it becomes quite obvious which applications packets were created by AI and which were actually fine-tuned or at least edited and customized and individualized by the person applying. I can tell you that for me, those individualized packets where people added depth to their applications really stood out. So what we will do today is use AI to build a team or an individual profile that goes beyond just looking at the manager or the company. We will try to identify skill sets that are relevant for the team that you're applying for. We will look at the types of certification or education that folks have, maybe something about their communication styles or values, and perhaps even identify gaps. For example, skills or certifications that they don't have that might be useful to highlight if you have those skills, that type of experience, or those types of certifications. All right, and I quickly want to cover the materials and the tools that we will use today in the lab. The materials will include an actual job posting for a CPM program manager. This is from about 2 years ago. I have bios from my team, some of them taken from the website, some of them taken from LinkedIn. I also have a writing sample, an article that I wrote, and we will use that to create the core of the team analysis. I will also include links to the official CPM websites. Finally, I have a made-up applicant. I made up a resume using AI just to illustrate what this process can look like. And again, you can find all of this linked in the video description below. In terms of tools, we will use two different AIs. First, we will use NotebookLM for the core of our analysis. This is good because NotebookLM is a very grounded tool. It will only use the materials that we give it. And this is great because it will hopefully prevent hallucination. Two, we will use Claude to do a little bit of pre-analysis on a stakeholder, and then to do the final analysis to identify potential certifications or trainings that might be useful for that particular role. All right, let's get started. Jump to the lab, see what this can look like. Welcome to the lab, and let's get started. We're going to begin the process by asking Claude to help us flush out a stakeholder analysis. Again, we are applying for a job at the CPM program. That's going to be our example here. And so I will use myself as the hiring manager and the profiles of our team. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is ask Claude to help us flush out the stakeholder profile of the manager for this particular team. That would be me. So I've prepared a prompt where I'm essentially going to ask Claude to build this character profile. Now, I've got it here. Now, again, I'll share this prompt in the description below, so you don't have to copy it, but just to give you gist of what we're asking it to do is, we're telling it that we're creating a professional stakeholder profile. I included my own website and website to my LinkedIn profile. We're telling it to only use publicly available information. It's really important. And we ask for a few things. We want professional priorities, communication style, likely hiring or team preferences, evidence patterns, something about organizational, professional context, and a little bit about any potential alignment areas. And at the end, we make it clear that to keep this analysis professional, evidence-based, and grounded in publicly available information. Avoid speculation. This is what we're going to tell Claude to do. Let's see what it does when we ask it to help flush out the profile of Dr. Miha. So here we go. We've got a pretty good profile it's putting together. I'll post a link to this in the video description below in case you want to see what it actually prepared. I think it did a pretty good job of building a stakeholder profile, at least based on the information that we provided and what it could find online. We can use this as a basis for a stakeholder profile. So we can actually do is copy and paste this to a document and include this in the next step, which will be asking NotebookLM to create an entire profile for the team and start comparing that to our own resume to identify where we could strengthen our own application if we were applying for a job at the CPM program. Let's take all of this to NotebookLM and see what we can put together. Now, here is NotebookLM. Again, I'm using a free version. So you see I have notebooks yet. You do have to log in. Just keep that in mind. So we're going to do create new notebook. And what we're going to do is start by uploading a number of files. And let me select these first. So first thing I'm going to do is just share the job posting. That's the first thing I'm uploading here. And NotebookLM created a brief summary that this is a job posting, a little bit about the requirements, compensation, etc. All right, so we've got this in there now. Now, what we want to add to this is profiles of team members. What I've prepared is bios of our team. Some of them I took from our website just to show you that you can take these directly from a website. Some of them are from LinkedIn. And let's add these in here to flush out this set of information for NotebookLM. All right, so here is bios from our team. And we will continue supplementing this. I will also add an article. So when you're thinking about building a profile for a team, particularly for the hiring manager, you might want more than just their resume or the LinkedIn profile. So if you can identify things that they've published online, interviews they've shared, anything like that will be useful, because remember, you can share links directly to YouTube videos. You can upload interviews that are recorded. Anything will work. In this case, I will add one more file, and that is an article that I wrote on LinkedIn just to give the tool a little bit more information. All right. So now we've got these documents. These are all documents that we uploaded. In addition to this, we can give NotebookLM websites. So I'm going to do add sources, and I'm going to give it websites, and I'll do the main Texas CPM program website. We'll add that to our repository. You see it at the bottom here. And we will add another website, and we will add the Texas State University CPM program as an additional resource. So we have all of this selected. We have a lot of information here. Let's begin. Now, the first thing we want to do is ask NotebookLM to create a profile for us of this entire team. So what I'm going to do is use another prompt here, and this will call the team analysis prompt. What we're going to ask it to do is to analyze the team based on the information that we shared here to identify, number one, their core capabilities of the team, right? Things they might think are very valuable in terms of skills, right? And potentially complementary skills, right? What might strengthen the team that is already there? So let's see what it does. And it's using only the 11 sources that we shared. Again, you can try to replicate this in Claude and ChatGPT or Gemini, but the advantage of NotebookLM is that it will only use what you give it, so you don't really have to ground it as much, at least not from the beginning. So here we go. We've got an analysis of the recurring skills and qualifications. We've got certifications that people have, degrees that folks in the team have, a little bit about their leadership and communication patterns, a little bit more about their technical domain expertise, the organizational priorities. Most of these seem like they're reasonably spot on. All right, this is a pretty good starting point. Now, the next thing I want to do is now we have a bit of a summary of a team, and we can read through this. You can, of course, go through and make edits. But let's say we're happy with this, and we think we've got a pretty good summary of the team now. We know what skills they value. We know something about their communication strategies. And most importantly, we know potential complementary skills. What could help strengthen this team? Now, the next thing I want to do is say, well, if we've done this, how would I fit into this? And here we're going to upload one less document, and this is a resume that I made up. So this is a resume for a completely fictitious candidate. I'll add it as a source here, and you can find this fake resume down below too. So this is for an Alexis. There's Alexis's resume is now included. So now we're going to ask it to compare this fictitious person, Alexis, to this team profile. And again, you can find Alexis's fake resume in the video description below. So we're going to ask you to compare Alexis's resume and the candidate profile against team analysis, identify where it fits, gaps, experience, complementary strengths, etc. Be candid but constructive. Let's see what we get. So this is where you would obviously share your own resume or the resume of somebody you're assisting in the application process. And so here, NotebookLM gave us summary, strong alignments. All right, there's clear education focus, relevant experience, digital literacy, absolutely likely gaps, specific knowledge about CPM program, university-specific technical systems, a good point, financial administration, something about underdeveloped skills. And here's some complementary strengths. Right? What are the kind of strengths that Alexis has that might help this team? So this analysis can give you a good starting point for tweaking your resume or tweaking your cover letter. So here we see that there are some complementary skills around interdepartmental liaison potential. In Alexis's resume, there's a specific line item that says that she has a lot of experience and is good at managing interests of many multiple departments. That is something that's helpful in the CPM program. And so maybe this is something that Alexis could highlight in her application. She could now explicitly talk about, here's how I could help complement your team, or perhaps identify that maybe she does not have a lot of experience with university IT systems or learning software, Canvas, for example. Maybe Alexis could go out and get a certificate in Canvas use. I believe stuff like that's available on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to do. And then she could add that to her resume. It's an easy way to strengthen your resume and perhaps even mention in an interview that you saw that these are the type of tools that the team uses. And so you wanted to better understand them. And so you got the basic certifications to be able to use these tools. I think that's a strong indication of a proactive candidate. Now, this is great general advice, but what if we wanted to identify specific certifications or specific things that we could pursue? So maybe Alexis thinks, okay, this is great, but I need recommendations for specific things that I can do over the next, say, 20 days before this job application closes so that I can really strengthen my application. What can I do? The advantage of NotebookLM is that it only uses information we give it. The downside is that it is not going to necessarily search the web. But you can also export this from NotebookLM and add it into another AI tool, for example, Claude. So let's first ask NotebookLM to create an extract that we can then use in Claude. So we want to take this conversation here and we want to extract it, this team profile. This is what we want to pull out. So here's a prompt that I pulled together to do this. Now you can find this prompt with the rest of the prompts in the video description. But essentially, we're asking it to create a concise summary of this conversation. And we tell it that we're doing this for export into another AI system. This hopefully will give NotebookLM enough context to create an output that will be easy then to fit into Claude. So here's our summary. I think this will make a pretty good extract. So let's just copy this and we'll take this with us to Claude. We'll continue the same conversation that we had earlier where we asked it to make a profile of Miha. Now we can tell it, hey, we want to supplement this. We use another AI tool to create a summary of this entire team based on available public information. All right, so I'm going to paste it in here. Now that this is in Claude, let's say Alexis knows that she has about 15 to 30 days to fine-tune her application. Maybe there's a certification she can pick up. Maybe there's some specific short-term skills she can work on, or maybe something in a portfolio she can prepare specifically for this job. Let's ask Claude to do this. And again, the advantage here is that Claude is going to search the web to actually identify the types of certifications or short trainings that Alexis could do to address some of the gaps and help shore up some of the strengths of her application. Here is the prompt that I have prepared. Based on the following team analysis and candidate fit summary, suggest professional development opportunities. And we're asking you to focus on things that can be done in 15 to 30 days, if that's the time frame. We're asking for things that can help strengthen the portfolio, ways that we can communicate, focus on the quick wins, midterm investment, and some long-term strategic growth opportunities. So let's see what Claude gives us. And here's some really practical things, right? Canvas LMS fundamentals. This is something that we identified, and I explicitly didn't put this in Alexis's resume. And AI did find that this was a gap. Here's some ideas on how to reframe an economics degree, identifying an invoicing experience. That would certainly be helpful. Some long-term investment. And this might be something that Alexis puts in her application that, she has these certifications, but here's the ones that she would like to get that she believes that, would help her in her career. Maybe an indication that, hey, I'm open to training, right? Here's the kind of training that I could do, or memberships that I could pursue, or that I'd be willing to pursue as part of this job. I think all of this would indicate to an hiring manager that this person, yes, they are missing perhaps some specific skills, or maybe there's a certification they don't have. But this type of research would certainly signal that this is a person that's put a lot of work into this application and that they are willing to work on their own professional development. I can tell you in my team, that would certainly carry a lot of weight in any application process. Here's portfolio and project ideas and some long-term growth ideas. Now, Alexis would have to decide which of these makes sense for her to focus on, given a limited time space, or if she is targeting for a job in the future, then maybe she can focus more on these medium or long-term recommendations instead. As a final step, what Alexis could do once she has all of this done is think about how she phrases things in her resume and in her cover letter. I have a video from a few months ago where we talked about how to tailor and why we should tailor any of our communication to the tone and style of the audience, particularly when it comes to an important stakeholder, like say a hiring manager. And you could certainly do that here as well. If we go back to NotebookLM, here's another prompt that we could use. Now, NotebookLM in this case does not have a lot of my writing sample, but it does have one, and it does have a little bit of information from my LinkedIn profile and from the CPM websites. And so we can ask it to analyze the writing samples from, Dr. Miha and see what it comes up with. Again, the more information we give it, the better this is going to be. So this is probably going to be a little bit rudimentary, but you could imagine finding more of my written materials, maybe even taking some transcripts from my YouTube videos and uploading those. All of that could be used as information to help NotebookLM fine-tune the writing style of Dr. Miha. And here it gives some advice. This is strategically urgent, diplomatically balanced, sentence structure, pacing, likes rhetorical questions. That's true. So a little bit about leadership, teaching patterns. So this might give Alexis some ideas on how to tailor her own language. And what she might do is write her own letter and then put her cover letter into NotebookLM and say, well, I wrote this cover letter. How well does this match to Dr. Miha's writing style? And ask NotebookLM for recommendations. It's a simple thing to do, but I think it does make a difference at the end. So this is one way that you can do a stakeholder or team analysis. Of course, this can be useful in other circumstances as well. If you're preparing a report, a presentation, a project for your CEO, your boss, your board, perhaps an important client, doing this kind of a background work to get a better understanding of who you're engaging with is always helpful. And I'll also highlight that there are other ways to add depth to your application. For example, if you can contact someone from the team, it might be helpful to hold an informational interview. Talk to them, learn a little bit more about the challenges at their job, the opportunities, a little bit more the organizational culture, and then include some of that information in your cover letter. That is another effective way of adding depth. Again, that will stand out when a recruiter reads it. So should you do this with every job application? Well, obviously not. It does take time, even with AI assistance. There is a reason that AI tools that allow you to mass apply quickly are popular. But for jobs that you really care about, I would recommend that you find some way of adding depth. And what we did today is one way of adding that depth. The second reason to maybe consider doing this is that if you do this kind of research on your own and you get a call and says, hey, you've got an interview in 2 days, you will be much better prepared to start research for that job, that organization, and that team if you do this kind of work on your own. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you found this content interesting and applicable. If you enjoyed the channel, consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.